So you want to get a UNBS certificate for your food and beverage business? Well, you're in the right place. I'm going to give you the 10 things that you must have before you even think of applying for UNBS certificate. Stick around to the end because number 10 is one thing that most people usually forget. Number 1, if you want to get a UNBS certificate as a food and beverage business owner, you need business registration. First of all, you need to make sure that your business or your company is fully registered with URSB, that is Uganda Registration Services Bureau. You need to make sure that you're not registered as a business name, but you are registered as a company. And that can either be as a company limited by shares or as a sole proprietorship. Without this, you cannot even begin to seek certification from UNBS. The next thing that you should do is make sure you go to the UNBS portal and then create an account with UNBS for certification purposes. The other thing that you must have is make sure that you have a TIN number for your company. You always get a TIN number from URA, Uganda Revenue Authority. If you don't have a TIN number, there is no way you can make payments for certification or for product testing without a TIN number, because UNBS requires that TIN number in order to process your payments for certification. Number 2, you need a dedicated premise for production. When you apply for certification from UNBS, UNBS auditors will always come to your place of production. They'll come and audit the place of production. You need to make sure that the place is dedicated for production purposes. You should not be sleeping there. You should not have livestock or chicken somewhere hidden, and then you expect to be audited and then given a certificate as per UNBS standards at least. So you need to make sure that you have proper premises for production. These premises must be clean. They should have proper ventilation, proper drainage. So you should always know that UNBS does a premise inspection every time they're going to give you a UNBS certification. Now, if your premises fail for certification, then you will not get a UNBS certificate for your food and beverage business. Number 3 is you need to have a standardized product formula. Within the process of certification, you need to take samples to UNBS for them to test your product. Now, if your product formula is non-standardized, it will always fail as per the standards of UNBS. During the certification process, you're supposed to acquire what we call a standard for your beverage product or for your food product, whatever product you're producing in the food and beverage space. There is always a standard for it. When you acquire that standard, it gives you the bulletin of what your formula should look like, of what your product should be like, of the specific levels of, let's say, stabilizers, emulsifiers, acids within your product, color, whatever needs to be there, it is provided for in those standards by UNBS. Now, if you don't have a standardized product formula as per those standards, when you take your samples for testing, for product testing at the UNBS laboratories, you'll always fail. And when your samples fail, you cannot get a certificate from UNBS or a QMark. So you always need to make sure that before you even apply for getting a certificate from UNBS, you need to make sure that your product formula, the formulation is standardized and it works well as per the standards of UNBS. Number 4, if you want to get a UNBS certificate, you must have proper labeling on your packaging. Your product should be properly labeled. It should have the name or the brand name or the product name. It should have the weight or the grammage of the product. It should have things like the location where you're manufacturing from. It should have, if you're producing an alcoholic beverage, it should have the alcohol content. It should have nutritional information. You've probably seen products. When you look at the back of it, there is nutritional information where they tell you how many calories are in it, how much protein is in the product, how much vitamins are in the product, etc. It should have the proper nutritional information. It should have an expiry date and a batch number. Those are some of the things that you need to have on your product labeling in order to qualify to actually get a UNBS certificate. Number 5, if you want to get a UNBS certificate for your food and beverage business, then you need to have a HACCP plan. HACCP stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points. When you're producing a food or a beverage that is a high-risk product, you need to put in place systems that identify hazards that can enter the product and cause harm to the final consumer. And after identifying those hazards, you need to set up what we call critical control points. These are points where you can apply pressure or intervention to make sure that you prevent those hazards from coming into the product, or you reduce them to levels that are safe for consumption. So before you even think of getting or applying applying for a UNBS certification or a UNBS certificate, you need to make sure that in your food and beverage manufacturing space or production space, you have someone to give you or to implement for you a HACCP plan for your production. If you don't have one, just forget about it. Number 6, if you want to get a UNBS certificate for your food or beverage products, then you need to have the right personnel. You need to have the right people working in your production space. For example, you cannot produce when you don't have the right quality control team. So you need to hire the right people that are knowledgeable in quality control, because those are the people that are going to control the quality of your product from the receiving of raw materials until the product gets out of the factory. If you don't have those people, you'll always have gaps and bad things happening within your production space that affect the quality of your product. And when it affects the quality of your product, it affects the customer experience of your product, and it can also cause harm to the final consumer, because if you produce a low quality product, that can be a health hazard to the final consumer. So before you apply for getting a UNBS certificate, make sure that you do have the right team in place. Have the right production people, the right production team, have the right quality control personnel to make sure that you produce the highest quality beverage ever, in order to enable you pass UNBS audits and get that certification for your products. If you want to get a UNBS certification for your food or beverage manufacturing business, or for your food or beverage products, you need to know that one thing that most people forget is the water quality. Water is a big constituent or a big component to most of the food and beverage products that are out there. For beverage products, you can find that water is about 80%, 70% to 80% of the entire product. You need to have the right water quality. You're not just going to get national water or municipal water and then take it into production and it just mix in flavors, etc., and then you produce a beverage. Or you're not just going to get national water and then mix it with whatever you're making to make a food product and then you sell it. No, you need the right water quality. And in order to get the right water quality, you need to have things like water filters, the right filtration system to give you clean, potable water that you can use within production. If you don't have clean, potable water within production, you're introducing hazards like E. coli, coliforms, salmonella that can go into your food or into your beverage when you're producing and then cause harm to the final consumer. So when UNBS comes to audit your facility or production and they find that your water quality is poor and you have no way of making sure that you purify water before it goes into production, they'll always fail you. You will not get the certificate. Number 8, before you apply for UNBS certification, make sure that first of all you have everything ready for certification. Run a small production run within your production facility for your food and beverage facility. Then get samples of your product. If it is a beverage, if it is a food, whatever it is, then take the samples to UNBS and apply for product testing. Pay the fees for product testing. Then what UNBS will do is that they will perform product tests on your product as per the standards of your particular product. Yes. And then they will give you results that either your product is safe for consumption, it has ABCD, making it safe for consumption, or your product has ABCD that is making it unsafe for consumption. So when you have those results, you know how to tweak your production process or your formulation and make it standardized and better before you apply for certification. Because if you apply for certification without those tests, UNBS auditors will come in, do the audit, take samples, and those samples will fail if they're already failing. And then they won't give you the certification. You'll have to redo things all over again, losing time and money in the process. Number 9, if you want to get a UNBS certificate for your food or beverage products, then one thing that you must have is standard operating procedures within your food and beverage manufacturing facility. What are standard operating procedures? Standard operating procedures are a series of steps that you must take for each process of production that make sure that each and every time you follow those steps and produce the same exact outcome that you intended to. When people do not have standard operating procedures, they usually skip steps within the production process. They usually change things within the production process, giving you inconsistent product quality each and every time. But if you have standard operating procedures, you just follow the steps and produce the same exact product, the same exact food product, the same exact beverage product each and every time because you're following proven steps. So a food and beverage manufacturer must have standard operating procedures within their production space so that they can produce continuously consistent food or beverage products with consistent quality. Lastly, this is the thing most people skip. They tend to forget all about it. And when it comes to UNBS audits, they get them off guard and they lose out on getting a UNBS certificate for their food or beverage products. That last thing, number 10, is having proper sanitation and proper pest control. Within our production facilities for food and beverage, because it is food, we usually attract pests. You could find that if you don't have proper pest control, you'll have rats within your manufacturing facility for food and beverage, which rats would want to eat on the products that you're producing. If you do not have proper pest control, these rats can introduce hazards into your food, the food that you're manufacturing or the beverages that you're manufacturing, which hazards can cause harm to the final consumer. It will also make the final consumer look at your product as substandard. Yes, imagine having, let's say you're producing crisps, yes, and then a rat comes and then eats on the packet of crisps, and you send out the product into the market without, let's say you don't have proper quality control, you didn't do proper quality control checks, and then you take it out into the market. Then a customer buys it and finds that the packaging has been nibbled on by a rat and the product is exposed out, yes, like air can enter into it, all sorts of hazards can enter into it. How will that customer feel? So you must have proper pest control. Then you also have to have proper sanitation. Yes, you have to have the sinks when entering into the production area. Proper sanitation will make sure that the hazards that we carry on our hands, the germs that we carry on our hands, when we are going into the production area, we do not introduce those germs into the food or beverage that we are manufacturing. Yes. There was a time when I used to be with Coca-Cola. There was a time we had a meeting and we were talking about this same exact issue of sanitation. And my QAT then, the quality assurance technologist, was testing us on this very thing. And I remember raising my hand up and then saying, what if you enter with a virus on your hands? Yes? You've not washed your hands when entering the production area. So you enter the production area and then you have this virus or this bacteria on your hands. And then you touch the beverage and then you introduce that virus or that bacteria into the beverage. Yes? Then someone out there, a consumer, takes the beverage and then gets sick. You see, when they start following up where this infection came from, they land on your factory, So you should have proper sanitation, have sinks before entering the production area where people can wash hands properly with soap and probably sanitizer, so that when they're in the production space, their hands are not a source of hazards, yes, to be introduced into the food or the beverage that you're producing. So there you have it. These are the 10 things that you must have if you want to get a UNBS certificate for your food or beverage products. If you don't have any of those things, make sure that you implement them before you apply for UNBS certification for your food or beverage products.